Hello and welcome to Python Fundamentals. In this course, we learn the underpinning Python programming skills, preparing for our journey towards mastering the Django Framework and the Python programming language. This tutorial is part of a series of tutorials. You can find the link to the whole playlist in the video description. This tutorial is from our Python Programming Fundamentals for Django Developers course, which you can find and purchase on Udemy. You will find all the latest and updated tutorials, as well as resources and assessments to help accelerate your learning of the subject. The link to the course, which will always provide the best price, can be found in the video description. Having now in the previous tutorial learned how to add elements to our list, let's now take a look at how to remove elements from a list. There are three common approaches that we can utilize to remove elements from a list: clear, pop, and remove. So let's take a look at an example of each. So first up, clear. Let's use the clear method. So shopping list.clear. See if you can guess what's going to happen here. Let's print this out. And there we go. So clear is just going to remove all the items or the elements from our list. So next up, let's bring in our existing knowledge, our prior knowledge of indexes. So remember again, this list is indexed. So the first element in this list is 0, meat is 1, chips is 2, and so on. So we're going to use this index to then select the item we want to remove, and then utilizing pop, we can then remove that element. So let's go ahead and shopping list dot and then pop, and then we just need to specify what we want to remove. So let's pass in 1, index position 1, which is going to be meat, and then we print that off, and there we go. So let's take a look at what happens when we don't specify a position here. Let's try and run this. Notice if we don't specify a position, pop will simply just remove the last element in the list. Now, it is very unlikely that if we are working with a very large list that we're going to be able to identify or utilize the index position. So maybe we want to search our list for a particular value and then delete that value. So for that, we can utilize remove. So we can then specify or search for and make a match and return and remove a particular element here. So let's give that a go. And there we go. So we remove jam. Now what happens if I have 2 jams? Maybe I have 2 jams. So let's see what happens there. So notice that remove will only find the first matching element and remove that one only. So that's an important characteristic to remember about remove. So there we have some of the tools that we can utilize now to remove elements from a list. So at this point, we have looked at how to order a list. We understand more about the list index, and we've started to use that list index to add elements to a list and now remove elements from a list. So it can seem, well, a little bit boring learning these type of methods in this way. But ultimately, I like to think of everything as a problem and solution. There are many, many different types of problems that need to be resolved when developing an application. And these tools, as I've described them here, that we've been introducing, are some of the solutions to some of the problems that you will be faced with when you develop applications. For me personally, it always makes it a little bit more exciting to think of everything as a problem and solution. Anytime I introduce or anytime I learn something new, I'm thinking about, what kind of solution would that fix? And I'm trying to add a little bit of information in my brain so that when I do come across that particular problem, I've got that little nugget of information which is going to help direct me in how to potentially solve that problem. So just putting that information into a broader context here, what we've learned so far in this section is that Python provides us lists. So we may not know how to actually write a list programmatically, but we know that lists are available as a tool for us to utilize in Python. Therefore, when we're presented with the problem of having to store multiple values in one place, we instinctively know that potentially we can use a list. Now, if we didn't know about lists, we wouldn't have known that, so we would have had to spend more time researching and finding that out. But we're already one step ahead. Although, again, we may not remember the syntax of building a list, we know that a list is available, so we can quickly direct ourselves to that information, learn how to write that, which is normally the easiest element of this, stage of this, and build a list. So we can apply that to all these other skills that we've learned here. The problem being we need to manipulate a list. Well, again, we may not remember that there are 3 or more methods for us to remove elements, but we know those elements exist. And again, that makes it easier for us to find that information. We've directed ourselves, we've saved a lot of time, we've directed ourselves to the information. We may not remember how to actually programmatically write this out, but it's very easy to find. Like most things about the programming language, it's easy to find examples, etc. And then we can solve that problem. And of course, over time, you'll learn more about different aspects of the language and different techniques, which will then start to store in memory. And again, although you may not remember them fully, you'll have that kind of starting point to quickly navigate yourself to the solution. So maybe do try and think of everything as a problem and solution. When you're building your notes, maybe you generate your notes and in a way that makes it a problem and solution. So when you go back over your notes, you're learning and directing yourself and positioning your brain in a kind of problem and solution approach, which potentially will be more effective when you're presented with problems.